Okay, great. Let's start. Hello everyone, I'm Ryan, first year PhD at MIT. So this is a work done with wonderful colleagues Jiawen and wonderful mentors Senghao, Haijun, and Jen. Before I start talking about CoLadder, I would like to have introductions about the topic that I want to solve. So over the past 2 years, language model-driven code generation tool, such as ChatGPT, or technically it's conversational interface, or Copilot is getting better and better or generating large amounts of code. It definitely changed the ways how programmers code, and it changed how programmers think about the code. So previously, programmers would plan how to solve a programming problem. They start typing down the code, writing the code, and then they try to modify it later on. But now, programmers can write prompts. It's an alternative approach for them, and it will generate a code, and they can evaluate the generated code, and refine the prompts, and then also modifying the code. This iterative process is actually introducing a huge gap between programmers' mind and the generated code. And in fact, there are multiple steps actually being introduced in this process. Resulting programmers have to switch between the mental models of evaluating and then writing the code. There are also several challenges arise in this process. First, translating the mental models of thinking about the code to a natural language prompt instructions in a linear way is actually pretty challenging. And second, when prompts are processed by a language model, it might generate a bunch of code, and leading to a sense of control loss in the code generation process and also to their own code, because it's not written by them. And since it's not written by them, they need to constantly evaluate whether it's correct or not and refine on the generated code, which is kind of disrupting their coding workflow. And at times, evaluating code can be painful because generative output might not align with the programmer's intent. For this rather simple example is that programmers might want to use a suborn as a, and then it keeps generating the code using matplotlib. It's kind of unclear which part or which occurrences in a prompt that are actually causing the issue. So to address these 4 issues in this kind of new programming workflow, we employed an iterative design process to understand how programmers approach these issues and identify their needs. Based on our findings, we introduced CoLadder, a system designed to help programmers hierarchically translate their intentions, mental models of solving programming problems into code. Programmers can directly manipulate the modular prompt block in a tree structures to add the corresponding code. CoLadder has 2 major UI components. On the left, it's a prompt tree editor, allows programmers to externalize their mental models of solving the programming problems and breaking down their intentions into smaller and manageable prompt blocks. And on the right, code editors enables evaluations on the generated code segments corresponding to the tree structures. They can manually edit the code, they can run the code and see the results. CoLadder is designed with 4 primary goals, corresponding to the challenges identified. First, CoLadder helps programmers transform the linear prompts into a structured tree format. Programmers can decompose thoughts into outlines of solving the programming problems, like tasks and subtasks. They can go into detailed instructions, and they can even write a pseudocode-like instructions. Using these hierarchical structures to externalize their problem-solving mental models. Users can get to arrange these modularized prompt blocks visually in the tree structures. They can mix the writing with natural language and code in each prompt block, speaking in both languages. CoLadder then generates code hierarchically based on the structure. The code is segmented and matched to the corresponding prompt blocks. And after creating these tree structures, programmers can add in individual code segments by directly manipulating the corresponding prompt blocks. They can modify specific segments without affecting the entire code base. So for this example, a programmer asks CoLadders to refactor the discriminators and generate models. They can go to the parent level instead of going to the detail, the children prompt blocks. And the results will fact to all the children's. To give programmers more controls over the generation process, CoLadder also modularizes prompts into this block concept. CoLadder offers various block-based operations, and edits will only affect the corresponding code segments. It's almost like we're putting together the code with like Lego blocks. So programmers can add sibling or child prompt blocks based on their problem-solving mental models, of course. The system also supports duplications of the tree structures and the cloning of code segments. They can drag and drop these blocks to rearrange the structures and regenerate the code. They can also add supplementary details, such as parameters or file path. That is too detailed. It's needed for the models, but it's probably don't want to show on the tree structure. And then they can also view the previous versions and prompts and code through a div view to see how it's being iterated. To reduce the context switching between prompts writings and writing code to code evaluations, CoLadder enables programmers to evaluate the general results during the prompt authoring process with these four mechanisms. Provides a lead step feature, which analyzes the general code, and segment them, and give users a nice clear summary of what each part, what the segments of general code is doing, and then adding them as subblocks. CoLadder offers prompt auto-completions, allowing programmers to assess suggestions and decide if additional details are needed to help models to understand what they actually want to express. It also provides recommended next steps. It's kind of serving as a purpose, helping programmers to understand whether further details are needed as well. And each prompt blocks operates like code cells in a notebook environment, allowing programmers to run and view internal results individually. To assist with evaluating the match between prompt and code, CoLadder also supports navigations between different layers, helping programmers to locate and modify the prompts effectively. Programmers can use arrow keys, going up and down, navigate between prompt blocks, and the code editors will highlight the corresponding code based on the prompt tree structure. Programmers can also use a semantic highlighting feature to see the correlations between the utterances and the phrases in different prompt blocks with the tree structure. And we conducted a user study to evaluate the usefulness of CoLadder. Here, the primary goals of the study is not to say, oh, how CoLadder outperforms baseline or something like that, but on how programmers actually perceive and use the concept of hierarchical code generations. So I'll highlight some of the interesting findings for me, but I encourage you to refer to the paper for more details. The first interesting and probably disappointing finding is that CoLadder is less efficient than baseline. Well, this is not surprising though for me, because people using CoLadders, persons using CoLadder, they need to convey and articulate their intents to solving the programming problems by the tree structures. They'll go through the details of how to approach these programming problems. And we actually conducted a recall test after the sessions and found that participants were better able to recall the problem-solving approaches when using CoLadder. And other findings related to this is that the system logs show that participants use run button more in the baseline compared to CoLadder. Because when using the baseline, they actually use this kind of opportunistic programming approach. They hit the run button and see if the result is correct, and they don't check the code. So that results in one of the factors that result this less efficient thing. We also categorize participants' authored prompt into three types. One is procedural prompts, describe how the code should work in a blue color. Declarative prompts describe what the code should do in a yellow. And mixed prompts contain both natural language and code syntax that people written. So in general, there's a kind of patterns that showing that participants prefer using declarative prompts at a more higher level, which is like the parent levels of the trees, and followed by procedural prompts, and then start to use this code syntax mix methods of writing in prompts when necessary to specify the exact approaches they want to take. So to summarize, CoLadder is a system that enables programmers to externalize, refine, and manipulate their problem-solving mental models and intents of solving the programming problems through hierarchical task decompositions and modular-based prompt editing. We provided programmers the flexibility to manage both higher-level structures and fine details of the general code. For more details on former studies, final evaluations, and implementations, please refer to the paper. Thank you.
Hi there, great talk. There's a lot of dependencies between code, both in terms of defined variables, but also state updates. And when the user is sort of dragging these things around, I worry those could get lost. Did you see users in your study end up sort of using variables before they were defined or doing other things that sort of broke the code in that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually, after each round of block-based operations, we have this kind of propagating mechanisms that kind of like rearrange the old code that if there's like dependency issue. Yeah, but it's kind of not really explicit for the programmers that they don't know that, oh, okay, all the outer codes are being arranged subtly. So I guess this will be also like a future things that we want to see, whether it's possible to let users know the dependencies are being arranged or not being arranged for them.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.